And here comes another Confessions podcast from your friends at Radio 2. Everyone seeking the forgiveness of the Caring Collective. This week's concise collection featuring a silver service slip-up, a frightful faux pas, a drenching from a dippy dog, and a plucky pigtail payback. Here's tonight's confession, which comes from Pat. Thank you, Pat. If you have your confession, send it on an email. Thank you very much indeed. The Confessions podcast available every Friday. You don't have to miss any of them. Your most holy reverendnesses. Many years ago, in the 1980s, when I was a student, I was a casual silver service waiter at a country club in Gwent that should remain nameless. It was a nice little earner, as a minibus would pick me up in Cardiff, take me to the club just in time to serve dinner, and then get cash in hand, get the minibus back home, job done, easy money. Well, I think you should
I'm doing a piece on cash in hand in a minute.
No, exactly. I'd like to tie it
smoothly
in.
done.
Do you think he got a receipt?
I doubt it.
I doubt it. On one particular occasion, I turned up to find that they were short-staffed, and I would have to serve 2 tables of 10 people, which is very time-consuming and physically tiring, particularly if it's a formal occasion that included a toastmaster, black tie dress code, and different wines for numerous different courses. Unfortunately, this was one of those events. The evening was going quite well as I busied myself between the 2 tables, doing my utmost to serve them without the food going cold and ensuring that I exhibited the correct silver service etiquette. It was when we got to the main course that things took a turn for the worse. I'd cleared the tables of the starter plates and cutlery. While the guests waited patiently for the next course, I headed to the kitchen. The chefs had lined up the flats that held the meat on the hot plate in readiness for the waiters to take away and serve to the guests. I walked through the one-way doors, picked up a flat plate, and made way for the first table of 10. On arriving at the table, I took the lid off the red-hot flat plate to reveal 10 beautifully prepared portions of beef Wellington. Matt's on a starve day, so this is a really, really good...
Heaven.
Excellent.
Yeah, go on.
For the benefit of those who are not familiar with the dish, this is a piece of beef wrapped in puff pastry. Succulent and tasty.
Okay.
With chips. I got my serving spoons ready and positioned myself to the left shoulder of the first guest. I attempted to slide the lower serving spoon under the beef Wellington. But alas, this was not going to be as easy as it should have been. The chefs, who shall not be questioned as they are the most important people on God's earth, in their wisdom had, with absolutely no thought for the waiters, baked the beef Wellington directly onto the flat. The puff pastry had now become part of the flat plate and was now holding the beef hostage. The serving of this course was now to become perilous, stressful, and very unwieldy. At the left shoulder of each guest, I fought each serving. I used my serving spoon as a painter and decorator would use a scraper to remove wallpaper. Slowly but surely, I moved around the table, the guests blissfully unaware of the strenuous effort being put in to serve them their main course. I got through the first table and moved to the second table. By this time, I was tired and hot and bothered. I was then asked by one of the guests for the vegetarian option. This left me with 1 extra portion of the beef Wellington on my flat. This extra portion was going to be my saving grace, as it turned out. Excuse me while I cough. Thanks very much. I finally got to my... Oh, where am I?
There you are. Over there.
I finally got to my last guest and started to relax a little. I stood at her left shoulder and began to wrestle with her beef Wellington. This one was going to be a beast. I scraped, chopped and prized until it was finally showing signs of movement. With one last shove, the beef Wellington flew off the end of the flat plate and into the hood of a cape, which was placed on the back of the chair of the lady next to my final guest. Why does anyone wear a cape anymore? I was mortified. I quickly looked around and realised that no one had seen the misdemeanour, so without a further thought served the leftover serving that the vegetarian didn't want. With speed I served the veg, whilst keeping an eye on the guest with the beef welly in her hood. In reality, the lady would not find it until carriages arrived to take her home. With some nervousness, I finally served dessert and coffee, took my cash in hand, stand by for that, got on the minibus and returned home without charge. My thoughts returned to the lady at 1 a.m, when the dinner party was due to finish, and whether or not she'd had the urge to use her hood, and the consequences this would have led to. So I asked around, had she put her hood up as she left? Apparently, yes, she had. Did the beef Wellington appear on her head? As if by magic, yes, it did. until it slid down her frontage and splattered on the floor. Howls, indignation, upset, but hey, I was long gone. I didn't care. I had cash in hand. Now, I feel there are mitigating circumstances. The cookie of the beef Wellington on the flats was the main factor leading to the flying beef welly. Being only 17, I didn't have a life experience to deal with this mishap and to face the consequences. As this was a cash-in-hand gig, I may have lost my pay as a result of the decisions made by the godlike chefs. Being a student, I couldn't afford this loss. So, Father Simon, I seek forgiveness from the lady with the extra portion of beef Wellington that had found its way into her hood. I also seek forgiveness for any damage it may have caused to her or the hood in question. Why does anyone wear a hood? Anyway, let's...
In case it rains.
What?
In case it rains.
Apart from that.
Yes. Well, that's the only reason.
Anyway, what do you say, Sister Rebecca?
Well, I think it's actually better that she put the hood up and the beef Wellington came out that evening, because it would have been pretty disastrous if she'd left it there for months, put it in her wardrobe and it started to smell and rot and do all sorts of nasty things. Also, isn't beef Wellington is quite self-contained and dry, isn't it? It's not sort of gloopy and sloppy. So it probably just, didn't cause much damage to her hairdo or anything. So I think all waitresses would have done the same thing in similar circumstances, so I'm going to forgive.
Sister Bobby, what are you making of this from the Priory there?
It's very funny, very lovely. It's a shame actually you didn't have a witness to share the event with, but also she should have had a cloak in the cloakroom and not had it. That's the thing, really. So you could say she was asking for it, but she wasn't really asking for that. But again, it's a lovely, lovely tale. And silver service is a nightmare. Mass catering is a nightmare. So good on you for getting away with it. You're forgiven.
Silver service etiquette and mass catering confessions always welcome. What have you got there, brother?
Well, number one, I'm thinking about buying a cape. I think it would make me look very interesting.
Yes, with a hood.
Cape. Yes, with a hood. The second is that I am always in awe of serving staff who are able to carry two plates on one arm. I've never worked out how...
Two plates?
Two
That's
plates on one arm.
I can carry 6.
No.
I
Like 6 meals?
In one hand, yes. I can.
No, you can't.
I
you
can.
can't
I'll make you a
carry...
bet on air right now. I can.
You get 6 dinner plates on one arm?
Yes.
This
Really?
will be one of the bets she's going to win, unlike most of the rest of them.
Right, well, I'm really impressed.
Anyway, meantime...
forgive.
Thanks.
6?
Yep.
Who knew she was so skilled? Anyway, we've got a drive time confession. Thank you very much indeed. This one comes from Nick. Your confession podcast on the 30th of January, Simon, regarding waiting until a wedding to actually make a confession has prompted me to write to you with this. I have never actually asked for forgiveness from the people that this sorry tale affected, so here goes. Whilst on my mock exams at school, we could miss normal registration and arrive late just as the exam started. This gave me a nice lie-in, what with being a teenager and everything. My mum and dad went off to work, and just as my mum left, she gave me a nudge to wake me up. Unfortunately, being lazy, I fell back to sleep. Now, my exam started at 10:30am. I awoke at 11am.
Oh, no.
I leapt from my bed. I shouted a few things and wondered what to do. The answer, the answer was, of course, panic. Grade A panic set in, and this is where everything started to go wrong. And we've had stories like this before where people try and sort of make up excuses, but this is a pretty spectacular affair.
Okay.
I rang my mum at work and I told her I'd fallen down the stairs and in the process had hurt my foot. There's a pause at the other end, and then came a voice which said, "But why are you ringing at this time, son? You are late for school." Another lie followed. I must have knocked myself out on the radiator at the bottom of the stairs. Phew, I thought that was pretty clever of me to actually think of that on the spur of the moment.
Is there a radiator?
Then the line that still haunts me to this day, as my mum said, "I'm coming home, and you'd better not be lying to me. I'm going to check your foot."
Oh, no. It's like Misery.
As I mentioned...
What are we going to do now? What are we going to do?
As I mentioned, panic had set in, so I went upstairs and thought, well, what can I do? Answer. I went to the corner of my sister's bed, and at the wooden base at the bottom...
No, you can't. This is ridiculous. We can't do this.
Repeatedly kicked the bed in my sock until I couldn't feel my foot.
Oh, what?
What an idiot I was.
Yes, indeed. Agreed.
I realise that seems crazy and ridiculous and utterly stupid.
Yes.
That's because it was. I also realise, of course, I should not have tried to make anything up and missed my exam. I shouldn't have done that. either.
Correct.
Okay, yeah. My mum came home looking at my heavily bruised foot and phoned my dad to take me to hospital. On his way home, whilst driving very briskly in his company car, he hit a bin wagon. No harm was really done, just scratches to the car. Anyway, he came to take his injured boy to hospital. After an X-ray on the foot and head, remember due to my imaginary fall, it was found that my foot was fractured in several places.
What?
I managed to miss the rest of the mock exams and watched quite a lot of daytime telly for at least a week before going back to school on crutches. My family never knew the truth until my wedding day, when my confession was announced by my best man, and there was shock and amazement in the room, especially when my dad's brother said it must run in the family, as he'd had his appendix out when at school, when in fact there was nothing wrong with him. He just fancied a rest and faked some stomach pains. What a family. Nick says, I can confirm that all this is true and would love forgiveness from my mum and dad, the staff at the school and the hospital, and from Father Simon and the clergy collective. It's one thing to go, I feel a little bit poorly, I don't want to take my geography test, which is, of course, not a good thing.
No.
Quite another thing, Nick, to break your own foot in a number of places, and also to sky. That's very bad. Anyway, Sister Rebecca.
I think it was actually the mother's fault, because she should have got him out of bed. And she should have known he had a mock exam, and she should have dragged him out of bed and not allowed him to go back to sleep.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay.
It was only a mock exam, for goodness sake. Was it really worth fracturing your foot in all those places?
Don't try this. Obviously, don't try this at home.
Yeah, I think that Nick has already suffered, clearly, for that little white lie to his mother, so I'm going to forgive.
What an idiot, though. Nick, what an idiot. Anyway, yes, Deadly.
I can't forgive because of Dad's car was damaged in all of
Yes.
this. Plus the inconvenience and whatever went on at the hospital. I'm just and Mum, you can't really blame Mum. Mum was only asked to give him a nudge. Nudge was the word used. A nudge. So I don't know whether, I can necessarily blame Mum in any of this. So, Nick, I'm sorry, no, can't forgive.
Brother Matthew.
This is all very odd. There are plenty of exams I didn't want to take, but I never. You've got to admire him for the initial phone call and thinking, I know what I'll tell her. I'll tell her I've slipped down the stairs and hit my head. But it's the genius of her saying, I'm going to be checking your head. What you would normally do there is say, OK, I didn't really want to take the exam, and I'm sorry, and I've overslept, and it's my fault. So fair play to him for doing. But going and banging your foot, what on earth are you thinking of? No, not forgiven for that.
I kicked the bed in my sock until I couldn't feel
until I
my...
could what?
Until I couldn't feel
At least
it.
he didn't do the same to his head. That would have been bad.
Yes, if it had been the head, that
Yeah.
would have been, yeah.
Wouldn't be right in the confession.
That would be right in the head.
Susanna has sent in tonight's confession. Thank you, Susanna. Dear Father Simon and the Holy Collection, I need forgiveness for an event that occurred around 2003. Let me set the scene. I was looking for a Labrador to keep... Why is that funny?
He's easily pleased.
Slightly bizarre story, yeah, go on. Looking for a lab.
I was looking for a Labrador to keep my Weimaraner, large dog originally bred for hunting, named
Weimaraner.
after the Duke of Saxe-Weimar. Pardon?
It's a Weimaraner.
Weimaraner, is
It's
it?
the dog, I think, yeah.
Well, it's Weimar, and then it's Ranner at the end.
Weimaraner.
Okay, I'll say that. I was looking for a Labrador to keep my Weimaraner. Yes, that sounds good.
Bananarama.
I think it's with M at the
It
end.
is a little bit like Bananarama, isn't it? Was it named after then?
I don't know. I just know that it's called a Weimaraner.
I was looking for a Labrador. I'm only in the first sentence, by the way.
Are we still on this?
I'm up on dogs.
A Labrador to keep my Weimaraner. Company. It's
Yes.
completely irrelevant to the story.
Go.
It's just there.
What story?
She was pining the loss of my previous Labrador. So in February 2003, I travelled to Kent with my friend Anna to see a failed gun dog. Bruce was a very small, 6-month-old black Labrador who'd been brought in to liven up the breeder's line. But he was a disappointment, apparently. As indeed we all are. He was utterly adorable, so Anna and I agreed that if all the dogs didn't get on, she would have one and I would come home with the failed gun dog. I renamed Bruce Ainsley. Ainsley is now my dog. I soon learned that the failed gun dog status really meant untrainable dog. He was completely naughty from the day he arrived to the day he died. So to my confession. During this period, I used to holiday on my own, just me and the dogs, twice a year in a tiny village in Cornwall. I used to go out of season so that I could walk my dogs on the beach between Easter and end of September was a no-go for me. This particular time, I was down for a week in early April. So I'm walking along the beach with Ainsley and my other dog, a rescue Labrador called Simba. All is grand. It's a gorgeous day, surf is rolling in, vast expanse of sandy beach to walk along, pure bliss. Thank you. Now, Ainsley was completely house-trained. However, I did have a slight problem with him in that he viewed anything outside as fair game to, shall we say, leave his scent on. This was not usually a problem, as I live in the country, and most outdoor things are usually trees or bushes, and so therefore not a problem. So all is well. Ainsley is happily running around on the beach and having a lovely time. But as you may well know, entire male dogs do not... I'll start again. Entire male dogs do look to mark wherever they can.
What is an entire male dog?
Entire means that it hasn't been...
fiddled with?
No.
Tampered with?
I was thinking of... hasn't been to the vet to have an operation to make...
How we're learning about dogs tonight, aren't we?
Yes. Hasn't had the snip.
What I mean, tampered with.
The snip, right? No.
Anyway.
It's just been... No, it hasn't. Right, go on.
Anyway. Ainsley is running around. On the beach,
Cornwall.
but he's got no opportunity to mark anywhere for about half an hour because there's just sand. He's getting desperate, and then he spots a rucksack.
Where?
A lovely, firm, upstanding rucksack with buckles and straps. Because the weather was so good, some families had ventured onto the beach and were playing games and building sandcastles. In the middle of a vast expanse of sand, a solitary rucksack. Well, as Ainsley spotted this rucksack, I instantly knew what he was going to do. So I started shouting, "Ainsley! Ainsley!" as he continues to run towards the Ainsley, no! It's his first opportunity to mark anything for over half an hour. He is desperate. I watch mortified as he approaches the rucksack, and the family who own it starts shouting at him to try and shoo him away.
What do they shout?
I know he's going to cock his leg any minute. Now, Simba, my other dog, had started to follow Ainsley towards the rucksack, but decided not to bother and started to turn back. So here's the moment. Here's my opportunity. As Simba turned, I said, "Good boy, Ainsley." Ah, you see? As Simba ran back towards me, I continued to praise him. "Ainsley, good boy, Ainsley. Come here, Ainsley." Simba may have been baffled, but I was a genius. I continue along the beach with Simba, leaving Ainsley urinating copiously on a rucksack and being screamed at by the family who it belonged to. I had a choice: accept the responsibility for my dog's behaviour or run away. Well, guess what? I ran away. I knew my little man would, in his own time, come and find me, and that was Ainsley. So, Father Simon, I can't ask forgiveness from the family with the rucksack. If you choose to play on a dog-friendly beach, these things happen, and the rucksack was tempting even for me, says Susanna bafflingly. But I do ask forgiveness from my...
Yeah, it is. Anyway.
Well, if you're walking along the beach, you see a rucksack, who's,
Which of us would not? Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, me, for one.
I ask forgiveness from my adorable failed gun dog, Ainsley. He made me laugh out loud every day for 11 years, but his antics do, I feel, abandon him. Just that one time to let him fend for himself and get sworn at, and it was all very, very unfair and distasteful. So Susanna wants...
Forgiveness for
the gun dog, for Ainsley. Not for the people who carelessly had their beautiful, firm, upstanding rucksack.
How stupid of them.
Sitting in the middle of a beach. It was one temptation too much. Anyway, what do you think, Sister Rebecca?
That was full of euphemisms, that confession, and if you don't have a dog, I found it quite difficult to follow, really. But
Which bit was different?
I don't think we helped.
Well... it was all confusing. Anyway, I think that Matt would definitely say that if you choose to play on a dog-friendly beach and put your rucksack there, it's your fault entirely, which is clearly absurd. Where are you supposed to put your belongings? I mean, you're not supposed to go onto a beach.
The rucksack goes on your back.
How do you tell it's a dog-friendly...
How can you relax on a beach with a rucksack on your back? That's absurd. So, I mean, are you supposed to just not go to a beach because there are dogs everywhere?
I don't know.
Beaches?
I'm asking you, do you forgive Susanna and the dog?
No.
You don't?
No, I don't,
okay,
because I don't think it's right for her to disown her dog after it
does
that. You do know that Ainsley is dead. I mean, let's not talk ill of a dead dog.
What? I'm sure we must have done in the past.
Deed of deadliness.
I don't forgive either. No, I agree totally with Rebecca. And also, I'm not talking to a dog. It's ridiculous. I forgive you, doggy. No.
The dog's dead. You can't talk to it.
Yeah, but even if it were here, I wouldn't be able to say, you foolish dog.
Anyway,
not
so you're not forgiving. All right.
No, I'm not tonight. No. Ooh, no.
Matt.
Ooh, no.
Okay. Who takes a rucksack to the beach? No one. No one takes a rucksack to the beach. And here's the other thing. What do you wear? I can't be doing with people wearing rucksacks. Full stop. Unless you're on the side of a mountain, you've no business wearing a rucksack. Certainly not going up escalators and then standing up the top of the escalator.
Do you have a man bag? What have you got?
No, I wear a bag, which is
satchel.
It's a satchel. There you go, satchel. Perfectly normal choice by a perfectly reasonable person, and not a rucksack, which has no business on the beach. And a hostage to fortune. That's what all reasonable thinking of people thinking right now. So yes, I'm going to forgive.
You are going to forgive.
Going to forgive.
Excellent. Thank you very much indeed. Dear Father Simon and the assembled Really Forgiving Collective, this is from Amy, by the way. Thank you, Amy. My confession dates back about 10 years. I own a hair and beauty salon in the Birmingham area. By the way, hair and beauty salon confessions always very enjoyable. Confessions at bbc.co.uk. Anyway, I pride myself on the customer service that I deliver and always try to ensure that we put the customer's requirements above all else. To this end, if a customer is not entirely satisfied with their hair when they're due to pay, then there is no charge. Obviously, this rule is open to customer abuse, but we try to ensure that the customer is happy.
Wow, that's great.
That's a pretty good thing, pretty good offer to do. One Saturday afternoon, I was happily styling the hair of a lady, and she was telling me that she was leaving the country to start a new life in America, and that this would be her last ever appointment with us. She also filled me in with all the details of her impending leaving meal, where at her favourite restaurant in Bradford, her party of 30 would be gathered for the final meal there. This restaurant apparently was extremely popular at the time, and to get a booking for that many would have had to be booked some considerable time before. This was a major achievement to get any booking there at all, but to get 30, Nigel, you can imagine that's quite a thing.
Yeah, in Bradford. Wow.
Yeah. It was about this time when my sixth sense started picking up the feeling that this lady had no intention of paying for her hair that day, as she was perfectly well aware of my rule. And sure enough, when the lady arrived at reception, she declared how unhappy she was with her hair. I look like a poodle. And despite my offer to rectify any problems she considered were there, she announced loudly that she was not happy, and she promptly left. If you think I'm paying a bean for this, you're a fool.
Okay. Back in St. Trinian's land. Everyone.
Anyway, she's walked. She's got a free haircut and she's walked. I was a little irked, says Amy at this point, as I knew her hair was, in fact, perfect, and she'd made up her mind before arriving that she was not going to pay. This was where I decided that revenge would be mine. Mine. I knew exactly which restaurant her large party was booked in at. I also had her name and her contact details, as well as the time of the booking. So, without further ado, I promptly rang the restaurant and spoke with a very nice member of staff and discussed my booking. Hi, yes, this is Philomena Nicholson Partridge. I have a booking for 30 tonight at 7:30. I'm ever so sorry, I'm going to have to cancel. I'm afraid, yes, I know, it's a sickness bug, affected almost everyone I know. Really sorry, I'm actually gutted. It's my leaving party. I'm off to America next week and I'll never see most of them again. Anyway, most of them are losers, to be perfectly honest. Anyway, hope you can deal with that. Bye. Well, the person on the other end of the phone was surprisingly sympathetic and said not to worry, as the cancellation list was large and they would fill the tables without a problem. They just have to rearrange the furniture a little, as they created an error especially for the party. I again apologised and hung up smugly. Later, after discreet inquiries, I heard of shouting and upset and adult language when a woman with a perfectly nice hairdo turned up for her departure with all her friends. You might like to know, Father Simon, that I don't ask forgiveness from the lady in question, nor her party of 29 others, but I do seek forgiveness for the uproar caused when the party arrived, only to find that their tables had been taken by happy people enjoying a meal at their favourite restaurant, which they weren't expecting to have been able to get in the first place. At least I didn't book a table for myself. Now, there are often tales of revenge like this. We waited for a Foodie Thursday just because Nigel is well schooled in the restaurant business and how that would be taken. Anyway, Sister Alice goes first.
I don't think I can forgive this one. I mean, first of all, she says that the hair was perfect, that, you know, perfection is a subjective thing. Perhaps the customer really didn't actually like her hairstyle, and to ruin her leaving party with 30 of her friends, I mean, that's just not on. I think the revenge outweighed the crime.
A little bit harsh, but let's see what the man from the cafe says.
Tricky. The suggestion is that actually she'd been to that haircutters before, hairdressers. She'd been there before. I didn't give the suggestion it was the first time that she'd ever been there. She'd always had a haircut. But also, as a restaurateur, thinking about them on their side, there's nothing worse than late cancellation. You've got all the food in, a big party like that, but they had managed to fill the tables. And if they had done, what you give out, you get back. This woman certainly got it back. So, Amy, despite all my best assignations and assertions and all the bits that begin with A, I actually say, I'm going to forgive you. Yeah.
Well, that's very interesting. So it's delicately balanced. Let's see which way Brother Matthew takes it.
This money-back guarantee, which apparently now is not, oh, we'll give you money back. It's, you won't get your, or you will get your money back, but we'll then make your life a misery if you don't like the hair. It could be that actually this haircut wasn't a very good haircut. Have we considered that perhaps she's not done a great job, and this woman was entitled to getting her money back? But oh no, I've decided that because I think you're on the scam and you're trying to get the money back on a perfectly good haircut, I'm going to cancel your booking at a different restaurant. Well, I say no. I will stand up for the woman with the haircut.
Philomena Nicholson,
Partridge, very much my kind of person. I am definitely going to not forgive.
Well, they were this week's confessions. Did you forgive any of them? Anyway, if you have your own shadowy secret, probably inspired by one of those, send it, please. confessions@bbc.co.uk. More in a week's time, and the Weekly Mayo available to download any time now.